I turned 60 last winter, and something inside me shifted in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't sudden like a lightning strike, more like a quiet tide rising over years, until one day I realized the shoreline of my life had changed. For most of my adulthood, I believed the measure of a good life was how many people filled it. I kept my calendar packed, said yes to invitations, joined clubs, hosted dinners, stayed up late at noisy parties because I thought that was what a full life meant. I worked in offices where the chatter never stopped, and I spent weekends catching up with friends, acquaintances, colleagues, neighbors, anyone who wanted a piece of my time. Back then, silence felt like emptiness, and solitude felt like failure. But as the years passed and the noise kept growing, I began to hear something else, a faint voice that whispered for space, for quiet, for a different kind of connection. I ignored it for a long time. I told myself that pulling back would mean becoming invisible, that choosing solitude would make me lonely or bitter. And then 60 arrived, and the whisper became a steady, undeniable call. It started small. I would decline a dinner invitation and instead take a slow walk at dusk, listening to the evening birds. I would let the phone ring without answering and feel a strange sense of relief instead of guilt. I noticed how heavy my body felt after an afternoon of forced conversation, and how light it felt after a day spent alone with a book or in the garden. What surprised me most was that I wasn't lonely. I was awake. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely, and I didn't truly understand it until now. Loneliness is a hunger for connection. Solitude is a feast with yourself. At 60, I have discovered that feast. Some people assume I withdrew because I'm sad or angry, or because life disappointed me. The truth is the opposite. I have never felt more grateful or more alive, but I have learned sometimes the hard way that not every interaction nourishes the soul. Over decades, you collect relationships like seashells, beautiful at first, then brittle, some chipped, some sharp. You hold on to them out of habit or nostalgia until you realize that carrying them all keeps you from moving freely. I avoid people now because I finally understand the weight of constant company. I need room to breathe. There is also the simple reality of energy. At 20, you can scatter yourself in every direction and still have enough left to start over the next day. At 60, energy is precious. I wake up with a certain measure of it, and I choose carefully how to spend it. Small talk drains me. Shallow gatherings leave me restless. I would rather pour my energy into a few deep conversations, into writing a letter, into tending the tomatoes that climb the garden fence. I avoid people not because I dislike them, but because I value the hours I have left. Time is not an endless bank account, and I spend it with care. Another reason is that I have finally accepted the quiet truth that not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some friendships fade naturally, like seasons changing. Others become lopsided, demanding more than they give. In the past, I clung to these connections out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of seeming cold. But experience has taught me that releasing what no longer fits is an act of kindness, for them and for me. At 60, I no longer apologize for this. I avoid people who drain me because life is too short to be anything but honest about what sustains us. What I have found in their place is astonishing. I have found the sound of the wind through the pines on a quiet morning. I have found the luxury of reading a book from start to finish in a single day. I have found the delight of cooking a meal just for myself and savoring it slowly without conversation or distraction. I have found that solitude is not emptiness but space. Space for thought, for creativity, for memory, for the subtle rhythms of the world that get lost in constant noise. I notice the shift of sunlight across the floor, the way a single cloud drifts and dissolves, the intricate architecture of a spider web jeweled with dew. These moments feed me in a way crowds never could. People sometimes ask if I'm lonely, and I smile because I know they can't see what I see. I am not lonely. I am in companionship with life itself. The trees, the sky, the books stacked by my chair, the music that fills the evening air, these are my companions. And the few people I do keep close are chosen with care. We meet rarely but meaningfully. We talk about real things, hopes, regrets, the books that changed us, the small victories of an ordinary day. Those friendships are deeper now, freed from obligation and noise. I avoid people now because I've learned to listen to myself, and that voice deserves to be heard. For decades, I drowned it out with chatter and obligation. At 60, I give it the silence it needs. In that silence, I have found not loneliness, but a profound belonging. To myself, to the world, to the quiet truth that life is richest when it is not crowded. I sometimes think back to my younger self, the one who equated busyness with importance. She filled every weekend, answered every call, and feared missing out. I wish I could sit beside her now, place a gentle hand on her shoulder, and tell her that the only thing she might truly miss is her own life passing quietly while she rushes to please everyone else. At 60, I finally understand that solitude is not a retreat from living. It is living distilled. The hours I spend alone are not empty. They are full of the small truths that used to slip past me in the hurry. I notice how rain begins as a whisper before it becomes a downpour. I catch the exact moment a sunflower tilts its head toward late afternoon light. These details feel like gifts meant only for those willing to slow down enough to see them. Choosing fewer people has also deepened the relationships that remain. My conversations with my oldest friend now stretch unhurried across afternoons. We no longer trade gossip or rush to fill silence. We share memories, laughter, and quiet understanding. The pauses between words are as meaningful as the words themselves. I avoid the crowd, but I cherish the chosen few. In a way, my circle has never been smaller, and my connections have never been stronger. Another discovery in this quieter life is how much creative energy returns when it is not scattered. I have started painting again, something I abandoned decades ago when the demands of work and social life left no room for it. Colors feel more vivid now, shapes more alive. Sometimes I spend hours lost in the movement of a brush across canvas, the world falling away until only color and texture remain. Writing, too, has become a companion. I fill notebooks with reflections, stories, even letters I will never send. These acts are not for recognition. They are for the pure joy of creation, the simple satisfaction of being present with my own thoughts. Many assume that avoiding people means rejecting the world, but I find the opposite is true. I feel more connected to the earth and to the quiet pulse of life than I ever did in crowded rooms. Long walks through the park reveal a universe of subtle sounds, the soft clatter of leaves, the rhythmic beat of a woodpecker, the distant rush of water. Strangers pass, and sometimes we exchange a nod, a small acknowledgement of shared existence. That is enough. I do not need conversation to feel communion. There is also a deeper acceptance that comes with age. At 60, I know that not every story needs an audience, not every thought requires validation. I once sought constant affirmation from others, approval, praise, reassurance. Now I seek only honesty with myself. The silence of my days allows me to hear that honesty clearly. I have learned to forgive past mistakes, to sit with old grief without needing to explain it, to let memories surface and settle like leaves on a quiet pond. Health, too, plays a role. Peaceful solitude reduces the stress that once clung to me after endless social obligations. My sleep is deeper, my breath steadier. I eat when I am hungry, walk when I feel restless, rest when my body asks. There is a rhythm to this life that feels natural, like the turning of seasons. I no longer fight to keep up with a pace that was never truly mine. People sometimes question whether this choice is selfish. I tell them that caring for one's own spirit is the opposite of selfishness. By tending to my inner life, I become kinder, calmer, more present for the rare moments when I do meet others. When I choose to visit family or help a friend, I bring my whole self, not the frayed remnants left over after too much noise. My solitude strengthens the love I offer, because it comes from a place of abundance, not depletion. What surprises me most is how natural this feels. I did not plan to withdraw from the crowd. I simply followed the quiet truth of my own needs. Society often tells us that aging should be a slow fade into loneliness unless we keep our social calendars full. But I have found another way. Aging can be a flowering of independence, a return to the self we might have overlooked in our younger years. I avoid people now not out of bitterness but out of reverence, for time, for peace, for the delicate beauty of ordinary days. I have learned that the heart can be fullest when the world is quiet enough for us to hear it beating. There is an unexpected elegance in this quieter rhythm, a refinement that does not depend on applause. When I step outside in the early morning and the air is still cool with night, I feel like the first person to witness a brand new day. I notice the weight of dew on the grass, the hush before the birds begin their songs. In those moments, I realize how much of life I once hurried past because I was afraid of being alone with my own thoughts. Now those thoughts are companions. They wander freely, exploring memories, possibilities, and even long-forgotten dreams. Some mornings I follow them back to childhood, recalling the scent of my grandmother's kitchen or the thrill of riding a bicycle down a hill with no hands. Other mornings I drift toward the future, imagining places I still hope to see, books I still plan to read, the quiet ways I might keep growing. I have learned that people sometimes mistake constant socializing for connection when it can just as easily be a way to avoid the deeper work of knowing oneself. The absence of constant chatter allows me to listen inward. I hear the gentle advice of intuition, the voice that was once drowned out by other people's expectations. It tells me when to rest, when to create, when to reach out, and when to remain still. It is a voice of trust, and trusting it has brought a steadiness that no crowd could ever provide. This isn't to say I've shut the world out. I still enjoy a spontaneous conversation at the market or a smile exchanged on a walk. But these moments happen naturally, without pressure. There is no need to force connection or to fill every silence. The world feels softer this way. Even when I meet someone briefly, the interaction carries a quiet depth, as if both of us recognize the simple miracle of being alive at the same moment in time. Financial independence plays its part too. Years of work and careful choices have allowed me to shape my days without obligation to a busy schedule. Freedom from the grind opens space for reflection and genuine curiosity. I visit museums alone, linger in front of paintings until I feel their stories unfold. I sit in libraries and follow trails of thought from one book to another, no agenda except discovery. These solitary adventures feel richer than any crowded event because they belong entirely to me. Some people assume that avoiding gatherings must come from disappointment or hurt, but in truth, it springs from gratitude. I am grateful to have reached an age where I no longer need to prove anything. I have loved, lost, succeeded, and stumbled. Each experience left a lesson, and each lesson now guides me toward simplicity. I keep what nourishes me and quietly set aside what does not. This is not isolation. It is discernment. Occasionally an invitation arrives, a reunion, a celebration, a dinner with distant acquaintances. I consider each one carefully. Sometimes I accept, knowing that a particular friend's laughter is worth the evening. Other times I decline without guilt, understanding that my peace is reason enough. The younger me would have offered long explanations. The 60-year-old me simply smiles and says, "Thank you, but I can't." That small sentence carries a lifetime of self-respect. Technology makes solitude easier, though I use it sparingly. A video call with family satisfies the heart without the drain of constant updates. I share photographs of a blooming garden or a finished painting, and that is enough. The screen closes, the room grows quiet, and I return to the gentle hum of my own life. In that quiet, I sense something profound. The presence of my truest self, unfiltered and whole. Evenings are my favorite. I light a single lamp, brew a cup of tea, and listen to the subtle sounds of the house settling. The day stretches behind me like a completed painting. Each moment a brushstroke. There is no audience, no applause, yet the satisfaction is complete. I think of friends still racing through crowded schedules, and I hope they too will discover the calm that waits when the noise subsides. Sometimes a neighbor will ask if I ever feel lonely. I tell them that loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of connection to oneself. I have never felt more connected. Solitude, when chosen, is a gentle companion. It teaches patience, sharpens perception, and invites wonder. It offers a sanctuary where the soul can breathe. As night falls, I sit by the window and watch the moon rise. The world grows still, and I am aware of the quiet pulse of my own heart. I avoided people to find this peace, but what I truly discovered is presence, the simple, profound awareness of being alive. And that, more than any crowded party or endless conversation, feels like the greatest company of all. On certain days, I walk to the edge of the nearby lake, just as the sun begins to settle behind the trees. The water catches the fading light and scatters it in ripples of gold. I sit on the same worn bench each time, feeling the wooden slats beneath me, listening to the gentle rhythm of the water. In those quiet moments, I sense how vast the world is and how small any single worry can be. It is a perspective I never found in crowded rooms. There, concerns multiplied. Here they dissolve. Nature becomes a mirror, reminding me that seasons turn without permission, that life moves at its own pace whether I rush or not. I think of the decades I spent negotiating schedules and expectations. There were parties I attended only to avoid disappointing someone, conversations I endured because silence felt impolite, and countless obligations accepted out of habit. At 60, I have shed those layers. There is no longer a need to please for the sake of being liked. The people who matter understand that my absence is not rejection but reverence for the quiet truth of my life. Those who do not understand simply drift away, and I wish them well. This freedom reveals itself in small, unexpected joys. I shop when markets are nearly empty, savoring the easy rhythm of choosing fruit without a rush. I travel on weekdays, avoiding the crush of weekend crowds. Trains and museums feel like private experiences, each moment my own. Even a simple errand, posting a letter, buying a loaf of bread, becomes a meditation when the world is not pressing in. Some evenings, I revisit old letters and photographs. They are traces of friendships, romances, and family ties that shaped me. I smile at the memories, sometimes with a touch of sadness, but without the ache of longing. These connections remain within me, part of the tapestry of a life fully lived. I do not need to keep every person present to honor what they meant. The love we shared still warms me, even in absence. My solitude also nurtures resilience. Without constant distraction, I have learned to meet discomfort with steadiness. When anxiety visits, I sit with it instead of fleeing. When grief resurfaces, I let it speak until it quiets. These emotions, once softened by chatter and busyness, now arrive and depart naturally. In their wake, they leave a calm strength, the kind that grows only in stillness. I realize now that avoiding people was never about building walls. It was about opening doors inward. It is a journey toward authenticity, toward a self that no longer bends to fit the noise around her. In this space, I find creativity, gratitude, and a sense of wonder that feels almost childlike. The simplest things: steam rising from a cup of tea, the scent of rain on dry earth, the texture of a page beneath my fingertips, become profound. Occasionally, a grandchild visits, bringing laughter that fills the house. I cherish those visits all the more because they arise from choice, not obligation. After they leave, the quiet returns like a trusted friend. I tidy the rooms, place a book by the window, and breathe in the soft hush that follows. There is no loneliness in that hush, only completeness. I sometimes wonder if others of my generation feel the same pull toward solitude, but hesitate to follow it. We are taught to measure a life by its gatherings and accolades. Yet here I stand as living proof that meaning can flourish in stillness. I am not retreating from the world. I am embracing it in a deeper, slower way, one breath, one sunrise, one honest thought at a time. So when I say I avoid people now, I speak not of bitterness or fear, but of liberation. I have stepped out of the rush to discover the rhythm of my own heart. In that rhythm, I find companionship enough, beauty enough, life enough. And in this quiet, I finally feel what I spent years chasing: a profound, unshakable peace.